Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. In this week's episode, we're looking at the A823M motorway. Never heard of it? No, of course you haven't. And why would you? If we're generous about it, it's a 1.5 mile long motorway. But that's a stretch. It's probably more like a set of just really long slip roads. You'll find it squeezed into the south of Dunfermline, and if you weren't aware of some of the history of this borderline not a motorway, you'd be fair in questioning why it exists at all. Let's start at the beginning of the beginning when the beginning began, and not long after the 1939 to 1945 small disagreement, Fife County Council decided that the road connections in the area were shite and they wanted to do something about it. The primary concern was for a road bridge to be built across the Firth of Forth, whilst the secondary concern was to improve the road connections running from east to west and vice versa. Along with plans to build a new bridge, they came up with the idea for an East Fife regional road, a proposal that would see a motorway built from the A823M up to Redhouse on the north side of Kirkcaldy and then on to Glenrose a bit further north. Nothing wrong with that, so they cracked on with it. The first job was to construct the Forth Road Bridge, and whilst doing that, it made sense to make a start on some of the motorway connections. By 1964, the bridge and new motorway connections were complete, giving us the A823M and the M90 motorway, although interestingly at the time, the M90 was merely a spur motorway, much like the A823M. With the first phase of the project completed, naturally they changed their mind and decided to do something completely different. They changed the route of the East Fife Regional Road, going against everything they'd done up until this point. It was now to be built further to the north, and it was. Today we call it the A92, and you'll find it at junction 3 of the M90. The M90 motorway has seen many additions and extensions over the years, turning it from a small spur motorway into a fully grown-up motorway. But the same can't be said for the A823M. With the East Fife Regional Road being moved further north, the A823M was never completed to its full plan and specification, which is why you've probably never heard of it, and why it's not really much more than a set of glorified slip roads. It is perhaps unfinished. There are no junctions on the A823M, so instead we'll start at the Pitcherby roundabout where we find the motorway's terminus and work our way along from there. What's interesting here is that in the centre of the roundabout, the ground sits a lot lower than the surrounding roads. Along with a lot of space between the existing carriageways, it's clear to me that at one point there was a plan for the A823M to continue to the west via an underpass. And there were plans. The West Fife Regional Road. A simpler plan than the East Fife Road that would see the A823M extended to the west to link up with the A985. It would create a useful bypass for the town of Rosyth, I don't know, but it seems even as late as 2020, Fife County Council was still considering this as an option, so who knows, maybe in the not too distant future the A823M will see an extension. About halfway up the motorway is a pedestrian bridge. I'm struggling for material this week, so I thought we'd come and have a look at that. If you want to see the A823M, then this is probably your best option because you can see each end of the motorway from the bridge. Actually, here's the thing. From here you can spot some emergency refuge areas, but why no hard shoulders? It's a bit like the M898 motorway. Back in the day when road building regulations were a little bit more flexible, on shorter motorways you could get away without building any hard shoulders, so they didn't. On the M90 South to A823M westbound slip roads, there's a bridge that was built in the 1960s as part of the motorway. It's interesting because it's wider than it needs to be, or at least that's how it is today. Had they built the East Fife Regional Road as planned, the A823M would have continued to the east and the slip road would have been part of the main carriageway. The bridge was built to allow for this to happen, but of course with plans changing, it never did. Today, it's only used for a single slip road and it's very unlikely it'll ever be opened as originally intended. If we follow the slip road back towards the M90, we find another bridge, but this one is built on a tight curve, and underneath we notice an awful lot of nothing. The original idea was for the A823M to run underneath here, heading off towards Kirkcaldy. The bridge, and in fact the whole interchange, was designed with this in mind, so it really does beg the question why they went against their plan, having gone to all of this trouble. The interchange is also known as the Masterton interchange, and it's where the A823M meets the M90 before coming to an end. Whilst there have been proposals put forward to make adjustments to the interchange, other than a bus lane that was added to the M90, the interchange remains as per its original design. A unique yet dangerous feature are the tight curves that feature on most of the slip roads. There have been reports to suggest that these slip roads are accident hotspots with high vehicles often toppling over. And there we are then guys, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching, I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, that would be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John, you've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting episode of Secrets of the Motorway. Till then, take care, bye bye.